We are recording. Hey, gang, Coach Rozy here. Appreciate you joining us here on the Coach Rozy Chalk Talk. And today we've got Kimon Lee. And Kim, I'm just going to read the kind of intro I have on here, then we'll break it down. This is the official version, and then we'll break it down from there. So Kimon Lee is a six-figure home-based business entrepreneur who was introduced in the world of home-based businesses in 2002. 8 years ago, he already saw the potential of pursuing his business and what the future would look like. Although he started with nothing and didn't even have any experience in entrepreneurship, but just like most successful entrepreneurs, through hard work, passion, and determination, was able to grow what was just a part-time venture into $1 million opportunity. Kimon has also a passion for health and wellness and has recently partnered with the leader in Liposomal Delivery to deliver solutions to health-conscious consumers who demand superior quality and deliver key all-natural ingredients for maximum product performance. So I know that's kind of the 10,000 view looking down, yeah. But I kind of want to get into that because I think there's so many people, especially in today's age, that think it's a cool thing to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think they think, well, if I have that name as an entrepreneur, that's all I need, and I'm off and I'm running now and I'm going to have this huge success. But there's a lot more to it than that, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the word entrepreneur is like the coolest word ever. Everybody wants to be called an entrepreneur. And yeah, that was my case too. You know, I worked for the largest computer company in the world. And I remember getting out of college and working over there. And man, I thought I was just on cloud nine. And then I started to realize all of the things that go along with corporate America, like politics, right? And so once I started going through that, it just really opened my eyes. I mean, and then one day I was just going to work, and just like everything else, I was like, man, is this what life is about? Like, I could do my job, work on $1 million pieces of equipment, software, with my eyes closed. And it was just so mundane. It felt like Groundhog Day. And I just said, man, this can't be how it is. And so we got introduced from a really good friend of ours, that said, hey, I want to be in business with you. And I just couldn't believe he was a 777 captain. He was a pilot for American Airlines. And so when he said, hey, I want you to take a look at something, I was like, man, I can't believe he's calling me up. And so we looked at it, and I just absolutely loved the concept, because prior to that, it's so funny because my parents have been entrepreneurs their entire life. They came from Canton, China. My dad only finished the 3rd grade. He became a master chef at the age of 15. He actually applied to be a chef in the United States. Over 300 or 400 people applied. They were going to bring 9 top chefs to New York City to open up a real big Chinese restaurant. My dad actually was one of the 9 chosen out of over 300 who applied. That's how he came to the United States. My parents were an arranged marriage. My mom had never dated. My grandfather was a master chef. And so when you hear that a friend of yours is going to the United States who is a chef, that's like you being a professional golfer and you hear Tiger Woods is looking for a wife, right? So it was like that great of an opportunity. They got hooked up. My dad worked for the restaurant for about 4 years, went through, became a US citizen. And the first thing he did was he talked to a friend of his and he said, where should I open up a restaurant? And they said, Albuquerque, New Mexico. There's no Chinese restaurants there. And so that's how we landed here. So my family have come from literally entrepreneurs. My dad didn't say, hey, let me go find a job after I get done with this contract that I signed up for. First thing he said was, I'm going to open my own restaurant. And so they did that for 25 years. So the entrepreneur bug has always been in me, but I think, as you know, it's so hard to find like what your passion is, because you either have to have experience or money. And if you don't have experience and you don't have money, it's tough to be an entrepreneur. So
let me ask you this, because I think just in, like you said, my family's from Norway, and Amsterdam and all that stuff. That's what the Rose name people look at. I think it's Ruse. And I had a chance to go to Amsterdam when I said Rose. And people they looked at my name and said, "Oh, how you doing, Mr. Rose?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're the only one who's ever pronounced it right." They're like, "Well, how else would you pronounce it?" You know what I mean? But it's like when they came over, that whole, it used to be, and I'm making up the figures kind of, but it's like 90% owned their own business, 10 didn't. And now that's flipped. And I think it's shifting. But so where do you think you learned the lessons? I mean, you've been very, very successful. Where have you learned the lessons to become, like through your parents, through your mentors? Where'd you learn this process to become successful as an entrepreneur? Because like you said, you really didn't have the background. Like, how come you didn't go into the restaurant or become a chef? What made you go the avenue you did, and then kind of take a pretty sharp right, really, right, to go into where you're at right now?
Yeah. So it's funny because when we got out of high school, my mom did give me the keys. She threw me the keys and said, "Here, the restaurant's yours. You own it. You run it. It's all yours." But when you grow up in the restaurant industry from the beginning and you're working and waiting on tables at 10 years old, and you're working till 10 o'clock at night on a Friday and Saturday night when your friends are like, "Hey, where are you? You going to go out with us?" You really get a bad taste in your mouth. Like, wow, yes, we have money, but here's the one thing we don't have is time. I remember growing up, and people always freak out when I tell them, but literally we never went on family vacations, ever, ever. Like when we went on family vacations, it was my mom shipping my brother and I off to my cousins in LA for them to take us to Disneyland. It was never my mom and my dad, because they said, "Hey, if we shut the restaurant down, we're spending money and we're not making money.
Right.
So we can't do that." And so I remember seeing that we ate good, we lived in a nice house, we had things, but we had no time together. And so what really made me kind of go the direction, because my parents, like all good Asian moms, right? They're like, you got to go to school, you got to go to college, you got to get a good degree, you got to go get benefits, but at the same point, my mom was like, if you want to make money and you want to control your life, you got to be an entrepreneur. So I got both sides of the tug as I was getting out of high school. And, when I went to Intel and I started to go through that mundane, we had a good friend of ours that said, "Hey, I want to be in business with you." So we went on a ski trip, and he literally told me, he said, "Kimon, do you have a plan B?" And that right there was my first, I said, "A plan B? What do you mean?" He said, "Whatever happens if you needed extra money to support your parents, your mom needed an extra $2,000 a month to live, could you afford to do it?" And I started thinking, my bills, my mortgage, I wouldn't have an extra $2,000 to give to my mom.
Right.
So that's how I started in the direct sales industry, was not to go full time, but was really to create what I used to call income insurance.
Right.
We have life insurance, car insurance. Well, why don't you have income insurance? What if something happens? And Coach, this as well as I do. The days of working with a company for 30 years, retiring with the gold Rolex doesn't happen anymore.
No, not at all.
So that's what I did. I did it as income insurance. And then you said something which is key, is I ended up finding good mentors, because I had no business being in business. I've never done sales. I've never owned my own business. I've never done things online. And I had to seek good mentorship. And it's so valuable. I remember starting with a good mentor, and he would tell me something and I would nod my head yes, and I would turn around and do something different. And I kept saying to myself, well, that's dumb. Like, why would I do it that way? Why would I do it that way? And then I started realizing, Kimon, the same thinking that got you to where you're at is not the same thinking that's going to get you somewhere different. So I surrendered to the fact that I didn't know what I was doing. And of course it didn't make sense because I had never done it.
Right.
So I surrendered, good mentorship. 18 months later, I matched what I was making at Intel. 18 years later, I find myself working from home full-time for the last 18 years. And I can't believe it, but I owe it all to good mentorship. So
and I know you were on our radio program before, the Living Well with Coach Rozy. One of the keys, and we always talk about it too, but you talked about on the shores of leverage. And we talked about time, we talked about money, we'll get into that. But
yeah.
You really talked about, and when it, like you talked to me, it's like these aha moments, you're like leverage. And I'm like, running and running and running. It's like, if you could find something to leverage, and I always talk to my athletes, like the leverage gets you to be able to lift more and do all those things from an angle standpoint. And it's like, when you hit the leverage, just to hit on that, because you were able to leverage, like you said, time, money, health, all those things you're able to leverage, right?
Yeah. And, a lot of times one of my mentors once told me this, and that's why I love, whether it's doing podcasts, listening to podcasts. I mean, some of the stuff that you cover, you have such great content. And what I love about it is that sometimes it's just about, it's not that you don't know how to do better, is that you just don't know better, right? So if you don't know better, how do you do better? And the thing is my mentor said, he said, how do you think it's possible that, for example, this was before Donald Trump became president, of course. He said, how do you think Donald Trump has so much money, but he has the same 24 hours in a day as you do? Like, how is he worth so much more than you are? And I said, I don't know. He said, because he has two wealth principles that wealthy people practice. And he said, and these wealth principles are principles. It's like gravity. Gravity is a principle. You could say, hey, coach, I don't believe in gravity. But if you step off of a building, gravity kicks in and you die, right? So he said, it doesn't matter. So he said, you got to learn these wealth principles. He said, that's why you could be 18, 21, you could be Mark Zuckerberg, who is in his 20s, 30s, and he's a multi-billionaire, because the principle has no prejudice. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. And it's those two principles, which is leverage and residual. These are the two things, no matter what you're looking for, no matter what business, if you can find leverage and residual, he said, that's how you become wealthy. He said, do you know what residual income is? And I was like, I have no idea. And I was kind of embarrassed. I kind of like tried to make it up, but I really couldn't make it up. I was like, I don't know. He said, let me tell you about residual. He said, people who don't know what residual income is, the moment they find out what it is, they want it. And people, if they already have residual income, you can never take it away from them. And I'm like, what? He said, because residual income is doing something once, but getting paid month after month, year after year, only having to do the task once. He goes, your job at Intel is not residual, because if you don't go to work, you don't get paid. And I was like, and he goes, so how do you leverage? He goes, do you think Donald Trump answers the phone at Trump Towers? Do you think he answers the phones? Do you think he does all? He goes, no, he hires people. He has leverage. He has leverage of people helping him. So the more leverage you have, the more money you can make. And I was like, oh, so he goes, just go find something that's leverage and residual. You will find wealth. And I said, okay. And that's kind of how I stumbled on the direct sales industry, because for a very low startup for me, with no income or no tangible income to be able to invest in, and no real experience, I could come into a system that would allow me to plug basically sweat equity into it, right? The harder I worked, the more money I made, which I knew I had that. And then it created a system that was already created. I just had to basically follow a system, which as an engineer, I was good at. Like, you tell me about a system, I'm like, okay, I'm good with the system, right? And that's how I did it. And then I got good mentors to kind of navigate me through the potholes. And as you know, just being a good coach yourself, you can literally take someone who doesn't know good technique and teach them technique, and literally compress the time it takes them to build muscle mass, to build strength, compared to me, who I'm just going to the gym, doing different exercises, not knowing what to focus on. So that's, I think, the key for anyone listening is, man, mentorship is invaluable. It's invaluable because it's lessons they've learned that you don't have to learn the hard way.
Well, let me ask you, so when did you shift? Because since we've gotten to know each other, I looked at your background and some stuff too, that you had this shift, because you talk about leverage and time and money and all those things too. But when did you start seeing and realizing the key to success was that you became the mentor? Do you know what I mean? Like, when did you start saying, okay, how do I become a mentor because of the good people that were in your life? And like you said, I can trace back, a name like these people did the things where hopefully I've been able to steal just a couple things from them to become maybe a good coach, not a great coach like they were. I'm hoping to be good, but just, it's like, when did you start seeing it's like, it's not about chasing the money, because those things will come if I follow that system,
Yeah.
But when did it become, how do I become a better mentor? And what steps did you take to become a better you, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, that does. And it's so funny because when you get into becoming an entrepreneur and you start following good mentors, the number one thing that most successful mentors will tell you is they know that there's one thing that will stop you from success, which is the 6 inches between your ears. So it all comes down to mindset, right? Because they could give you the best technique, you could give the best up, and just based on your tagline with Elevation Nation, right, is that you have to separate to elevate. And so most people don't understand that mindset is literally the key to your success. It's not even a lot of this other stuff. So until you change your mindset. So my mentors are really what helped me, which is start to read. And I started surrounding myself because I tell people all the time, I hated school. I can honestly tell you, because I was so money motivated in my 20s and 30s, I was willing to become an engineer even though I hated math. I was willing to go to Intel even though I hated it, but I thought the money was good. So I was motivated because of money. Once I started attaining money, then I started realizing that I didn't like what I was doing and that my time freedom was now more important. So when I started reading, one of my mentors said, "You got to read." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, out of everything you could have asked me to do, reading is the one thing that I just don't like to do. It's not that I'm dyslexic or anything, but I just hate reading. Maybe it's my ADHD. I don't know." He said, "Well, unless you are going to start reading and growing personally, you'll never get out of your situation. You'll never start doing better. You'll never make more money. You'll never become a different person." And I'm like, okay. And I was coachable. And I said, "Well, I don't like reading." He said, and then I took a course with John Maxwell. I don't know, you probably know who John Maxwell is.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
John
yeah.
Maxwell is one of the
Stuff.
leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got invited to a thing with John Maxwell, and he said something that changed my life. He said, reading, he said, "Here's how you do it. Can you read 10 pages a day?" And I'm like, "Yeah, 10 pages is nothing." He goes, "If you read 10 pages a day, 5 in the morning, 5 at night, 10 in the morning, 10 at night, doesn't matter. 10 pages a day for 30 days is 300 pages. The average book is under 300 pages." He said, "What would you do if you read 10 pages a day for 1 year? You would have read 12 books." I was like, "Oh my gosh." He's like, "What would even happen if you read 12 books that were completely focused on what you were trying to grow? What impact do you think would happen?" And he did the statistics where he took 12 people from January to December, had them read 12 books. And literally in 12 months, their incomes changed. Everything about them changed. Their businesses changed because their perspective started really changing. And that's when I started noticing, when I started reading books that were focused on what I was trying to do and grow. Because he wrote this book called The Law of the Lid.
Yeah,
And the
yeah, yeah.
law of the lid, yeah, that's why people who become millionaires win the lottery lose it all, because their income lid is so small, it's so low. So even though they make 60,000 a year, their lid is like here for thinking. Well, when they win $100 million, it goes to here. But the law of the lid says you always go back to your lid. So they lose it all and come back to here. So it's not that they get crazy with the money, it's just that their lid. So you got to raise your lid and your income will move accordingly.
So I'm going to dive in here and
Yeah.
interrupt you. So top three, two or three, I'm giving you a choice. Personal growth books, and then two or three that you help you business wise, and maybe the growth were the business. But like if somebody said, "Hey, give me three good books that you think a business person or somebody just for growth," because it's the new year, we're looking at getting in, next couple of days,
Yeah.
we're in 2021, and this last year was pretty crappy. And I think a lot of people are going to set the goals, and we all know after that first 2 or 3 weeks, we're back to 2020 again instead of 2021. So if you
Yeah.
could say like, "Hey, over the next 3 months, read one of these books a month for the next 3 months, one a month," what three
Yeah.
would you say?
So the first book that I would read is called The Dream Giver. The Dream Giver, it's by Wilkinson. And it's not even really a business book, but it's called The Dream Giver. It's so good, but it's about getting out of your comfort zone. It's about chasing your dreams. It's about, it's so funny because they give a parable And the parable is a guy named Ordinary who lives in the town of Comfort. And it's a good parable because when he leaves the town of Comfort, he starts running into all these characters that really force him to get anxiety. So he turns around and he runs back home. And so, but it's called The Dream Giver. And it's about really God giving you a dream for you to pursue. So The Dream Giver was absolutely phenomenal. The second book for entrepreneurs that I would totally recommend, it's called Emotional Intelligence by Dr. Travis Bradbury. The emotional intelligence, he does this whole thing and he says, we have intellect, intelligence, which is like your IQ. And then we have your EQ, which is your emotional intelligence. Well, if you look at the spectrum of people who become multi-millionaires, a lot of them have one thing in common, which is a lot of them don't even finish high school or college, right? And you're like, well, how's that possible? Because their EQ is so high. Your IQ is set around 14 years old. It's kind of set, but your EQ can always go up no matter what age. And the reason is because it's the way you process emotion. We all go through 1,000 emotions. And so it all goes through the frontal part of your brain.
Right.
So when you're thinking, if someone says no to you, you have some sort of thing in your business, the emotions go through the front part of your brain. And then after it goes through the emotion part, then it goes to the decision-making part. The problem is the emotional part sometimes dictates the decision. So the EQ, it's an awesome book. It's called Emotional Intelligence, Emotional EQ by Dr. Travis Bradbury. Those two books right there literally put me on. And then the last book, it's called Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
And I don't remember the author of that one. I read that one first, but it's called Who Moved My Cheese? It's about not getting comfortable and getting used to being uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I've read that. I'm trying to think it was, I can't remember who wrote it either. But
yeah, I can't remember the name of that.
yeah.
But yeah. And then obviously there are so many John Maxwell books that I've read. But there's just so many. I mean, there's so many great authors nowadays. And with us now having, the audio books, like you can get on the audio app and you can listen to books and it's like $15 a month and you can just listen to books, if you're not a big reader. But I think the biggest thing that I would just suggest most people do is the personal growth. That's what's really changed my mindset and my outlook.
So personally, how do you break down and look at when you're looking at, the people you hang around, what you listen to, what you hear? I always say that to listen and to block out the noise, but gather the nuggets. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
Because there are so many, it's like somebody looks at something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed, and I've talked to people, they're like, I'm so overwhelmed by this, that it's so much noise, and to pull out those gold nuggets, and you talk about those aha moments. What helps you determine the nuggets from the noise?
I think, I love that how you said that too. And I've never heard it like that. I think the biggest thing is it goes back to that old quote, is that when the student's ready, the teacher magically appears.
Yeah.
I think that's when you really start grasping stuff. My wife and I are very big advocates on surrounding yourselves around people that push you, that force you to get out of being average, and that won't settle for you to suck. I always used to tell people, don't hang around with people that are okay with you sucking. Like, you got to have them challenge you and stuff. And so I think law of association is so important. I think as adults, I'm rounding, almost getting to my 50s. And I think the biggest thing is, as when we get to become adults, we don't think that law of association matters as much to us as it did with our 8 and 10-year-olds when they're at school playing with kids. Right. It matters just as much because our surroundings influence us. And so I think when it comes to that, I also never like to take advice from someone who doesn't have or is doing what I want. And the example is my wife and I married my high school sweetheart. We've been married for 15 years. But honestly, as much as I love any of my friends, I'm not taking marriage advice from a friend that's gotten 2 divorces. I'm taking advice from someone who's been married 30, 40, 50 years, right? Just like in physical fitness. I mean, if I want some nuggets and some tips on physical fitness, strength conditioning, you can better believe I'm going to you. I'm not going to our friend Larry McConnell, right? I love Larry, when it comes to strength and conditioning, Larry probably not going to get me to where I want to go compared to going to you. So those are the things that I had to learn to decipher. And maybe that's how I've been able to pull the nuggets out. Because you go to people that have done what you've done, and then you always get what they get.
And listen to what they're like, like you're saying, the nuggets that they send and say, I mean, I saw, you probably saw, I'm writing the books down. I'm like, okay, I got to go get those books, because you start to develop people that you know and trust. And it's like, okay, I kind of know, like I got a couple buddies, I'll call and say, hey, what are you reading? And when they tell me, I'm like, okay, I know, just because I know, like you said, they're mentors. I'm like, if they're reading this, then I better read that too. So, when you were looking at different avenues, did it matter to you? I mean, and I know you said, you were looking just at opportunity. Do you think that opportunity was right for you because it was the right time for it? Or could it have been anything? You know what I mean? Were you looking for something specific that had a fit within your comfort zone and your values? How did you go about like saying, oh, this is good for me, and then looking, a couple different other things? I know you've had other opportunities come and go, wow, this is in my wheelhouse, I'm really going to go after this.
Yeah, I think, I've been in the industry 20 years now. And for the last 20 years, I've studied the industry. I've studied compensation plans. I've studied a lot of things. We built an organization. We had over 45,000 people on our team at one point in time. So I've seen large organizations. I've seen international growth. We had huge organizations in Mexico. So in the last 20 years, we've been able to, you see these things just like in the athletic world, right? Just with coaches and lifting programs and just so many things you've seen in your time in the industry, you can start to see trends and what's going to work and what's not going to work and what's tried and true and what's not. So in those 20 years, so I've had so many opportunities come my way that really it's just about, there's a lot of good opportunities, but if you don't know what to look for, everything looks like a great opportunity, right? And so one of the things that really helped me was a good friend of mine actually introduced me, which I had known for over 15 years. So there was that trust, and the fact that he had been in the industry for over 30 years, calling me up as a good friend saying, hey, you got to take a look at this, right? You probably know, just in the athletic world, someone with your level of training that's talking to someone with equal level of training, it's a different conversation than it is between you and I on the same subject, right?
Right.
That's how it was with him and I. It was very black and white. There was no fluff. There was no selling. There was, this is what it is. You understand the industry. You've been doing it 20 years. You know what to look for. You know what works, that doesn't work, what's going to help people. And you know timing. And so that's kind of how it worked. I looked at it. I evaluated it. I asked questions that 90% of people would probably never ask when it comes to this industry, when it comes to just normal business, because let's face it, 90% of people come in with I will give it a try attitude. Well, you probably would hate that if you were training me and said, well, I'll try to be there in the morning to work out with you, coach. I'll try to lift that. I'll try to get some protein this weekend, or I'll try to get some supplements. You already know, I'm already telling you how this training session is going to go the next month, right?
Right. Yeah. I always say, because we have people, I always say 5:30 in the evenings, easy. 5:30 in the morning, it's tough. Because I'll talk to people, they're like, hey, I'm going to come work out with you in the morning because we do some morning training. I'm like, okay, well, it's easy to tell me that at supper. It's tougher when you have to get up at 4:35 in the morning and be at the gym. And I'll say this, hey, I missed you today. Well, yeah, I had, I had some things come up. I'm like, you didn't have anything come up at 5:30 in the morning. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, any excuse will work. Like my cat had a fur ball. That's just a good enough excuse as anything too. Yeah. So when you started looking at, and I'm going to kind of shift over then to the health and fitness industry that you were looking at.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the company, what you saw in that, because like you said, you knew some things to look for, and probably shooting over our heads, and it's like shoot low, Sheriff, I'm riding a Shetland pony here. So, you might be shooting over our heads of some of the things you were looking for, but for like a layman to say like, there's so many health and fitness things out there. I probably get somebody stopping in once a week. So I'm almost, to the point where I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I don't even want to hear this anymore. And like you said, because when Larry talked to me about it and then had a chance to introduce you, and I was able to try some of the products and really kind of start doing a deeper dive into it, I
Yeah.
started to get a shift. But like I said, there's so many things out there that it's just, again, it's that noise instead of the nuggets. When I saw some of this, it was nuggets. But from your process, what did you see that, and I know from the business end, but some from them start to relate to from some of the products and the value you saw of what the products were that you got involved with.
Yeah. So when I first looked at it, you said it perfect. There's hundreds of thousands of nutritional products out there. I mean, you probably definitely get approached more about nutritional products than I did before I got involved, just because of your line of work. So when they said it was a nutritional product, I didn't get super excited about that piece. The piece I got excited about initially was the fact that the gentleman starting the company had already had previous success about following someone that's already done what you want to do, right?
Right.
He's already built 2 companies to $1 billion. So that was my initial draw. And then when I started to go and hear about the products, I realized that they were solving problems. They weren't just trying to be another Me Too product. And there are so many Me Too products. There's copycats for everything. And you probably are aware that when someone says they have protein and they said they have, it's whey protein or they have L-carnitine in it or something like that, or amino acids in it or whatnot, there's a lot of companies that have that.
Right.
So just because the ingredients are different doesn't mean you're different just because the packaging is different. Right. So when I found out that they didn't want to be like everyone else, they didn't want to create another nutritional product just to put on the shelf, that they were looking to really make a real difference. And when I found out that they started doing something way different than any other company I've ever seen, and when I started really doing this research on this liposomal technology, that's what really intrigued me. Wow, it's so true, because we all realize that it's not what we consume, it's what our body absorbs. And if your body doesn't absorb it, who cares if the product is $10 or $100? Your body doesn't care about dollar. Your body's just going to say, if I like it and I can absorb it, I'm going to. If not, you're just going to pee it right out.
Right. Yeah.
And so you'll waste your money. Right. So it was the technology. When I deep dove into it, I said, okay, so they're going to stand out because they're doing it like no one else. So that's the only way you stand in the front of the line. It's kind of like Apple. Apple solved the problem. They just weren't another cell phone. They solved a problem. Right. Yes. So they were going to do that. So it was that piece. And then the other piece was timing. Well, we already know that the number one way to grow any business, the fastest way to grow it is through word of mouth.
Right.
And I knew that in the beginning stages, if they had a good story that they were doing something different and they were marketing a consumable that was going to be different, because if your body absorbs it, you can deny it all you want, but if your body absorbs it, it will be effective. So with that, the word of mouth, we all refer stuff anyways that we love. And I knew that if these products really worked and they were absorbing and being effective, that people would refer it. And if people are referring it based on how the model works through distribution, through the direct sale model, it's just like putting your product in one Walmart or in every Walmart, Target, Smith's, Albertsons, I mean, you name it. Doesn't mean your product's that much better, but you have more distribution. So if more people are willing to distribute it, you're going to create the greatest amount of wealth because you create the leverage, right? The leverage piece of it. So those are some of the things that I looked at without getting too technical about compensations and stuff, but there's several things. And then the last piece was, when I build a distribution, how does the compensation plan work in my favor? Because a lot of compensation plans, they seem to work in your favor in the beginning, but as your organization and the distribution get bigger, a lot of times the compensation plan has a lot of gotcha holes that most that don't know how to navigate around those, they get caught. And instead of their incomes exponentially growing, their incomes actually start to plateau. And it's not based on because the company had anything bad and ill will, but it's the way the compensation plan is set up, because there's only so many pennies in a dollar, right?
Right.
I mean, you can only divide a dollar so many ways.
Right.
And some companies' compensation plans are designed for what they call breakage. And that's one thing that you don't want a lot of in a direct sales business. As you build large business, you don't want a lot of breakage, which, you know, cuts your income and stuff like that. Because we're all going to build big organizations because we're marketing consumable products, and especially if they work, they will be shared.
So to get into the work part of it, for when people hear about, you know, the delivery system, and you talked about, you know, how it binds with the fat, so can you go into that a little bit? Because I think some of the folks listening are going, okay, that's from the business end, but now from the nutrition end, how does that whole, you know, it's like, well, it gets into your system better. Well, I don't understand that whole part of it. Can you explain that just a little bit, dive into that?
Yeah. So what our company is doing is they're using this liposomal technology. And I always tell people, if they go Wikipedia, they can look up liposomal delivery, and it goes through a big old long technical explanation to it. But really, in the layman terms, liposome technology is simply just a fat bubble. And the outer portion of the fat bubble is made of the same materials as our cells. So what they do is, if you kind of think of it like an M&M, if you've never had an M&M before, you would never know by the outside there's chocolate in the middle. Well, a liposome is very similar. It's just a fat bubble, but instead of putting medication to treat patients with medication in the pharmaceutical world, where they inject medicine in the center of the liposome, imagine the same liposome or the same M&M, but instead of chocolate, we're putting like jelly. Well, you don't know. So you're still going to think it's an M&M, but when you consume it, what the fat bubble does is it withstands the digestive tract, so it doesn't break down. And then number two, your body notices it and recognizes it as fat. Even though it's not technically fat, it just looks like fat. Well, I always tell my friends, if you don't think fat, your body loves fat, eat French fries every day, watch how big you get, right? So it's just a fat bubble. So what happens is your body absorbs it, it gets into your bloodstreams, and then it binds with your cells like two soap bubbles, which then create one. And when it creates one, it delivers the nutrients to your cells, which then takes it to your body where your body needs it. That's why when you take good nutrition, people say, oh my gosh, I've tasted these multivitamins. I've never felt this good.
Right.
Our multivitamins is the least sexiest product we have, but it's the most effective, because it's like putting really good high octane fuel in your automobile. It's just going to run better, right? Because our bodies need certain things to run optimally. Unfortunately, we don't give our bodies those nutrients every single day. And as we get older, the digestive enzymes in our stomach don't break down the foods as much. I don't know about you, Coach, but I eat so fast, which means I don't chew my food, which means my food is going down in bigger chunks. And as I get older, my digestive enzymes cannot break down the food to pull the nutrients out. So I'm not getting as much nutrients, right?
Right.
So you need all of these nutrients when you get older to digest, to get the nutrients out. So that's why I love this multivitamin whole food that we market, because it's whole food. It's a whole food, and it's real, and it's all your digestive enzymes, minerals, vegetables, superfruits. Everything your body needs to run optimal is in this packet. So I take it every day because I know I don't eat the right foods every single day.
Right.
And so, but the liposome technology is really the factor. That's the factor that helps deliver the nutrients to our bodies for it to absorb. Because you go out and you buy expensive vitamins, and it's the same delivery. Every single nutritional company, the only differentiating factor for most nutritional companies is the ingredients.
Right.
Well, go to GNC, go to these nutritional stores, pull out 8 whey proteins and look at the ingredients on the back. You're going to find so many similar ingredients. Well, what makes it different? Why is it different? Because it's from, one company versus another company, right?
Yeah.
There's no difference. That's what attracted me, because the difference for us is the delivery. And the delivery is the key, because if your body doesn't absorb, it doesn't matter. Your body will simply flush it out. So the technology is the liposomal delivery. And there are very, very few nutraceutical companies right now using the liposomal delivery. Now, in the future, there's going to be a ton. But right now, we are the leader in the company. So the timing of the business, that's why it's so exciting.
And I know that's from that. And then two, can you talk a little bit, because I know a lot of our folks do take protein, And like they say, well, protein's protein. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. And the way it's set up and what you're taking in. And I'm just the whole believer because, I grew up on a farm and everything else. And what we see is nutrition's not nutrition, and products, the way that everything's shipped and done right now, and I keep reading different things, how nutritional value of foods that even 10 years ago have lost so much of their nutritional value, that what we ate 10 years ago, and if we're eating the same thing now, our nutritional value has dropped. And even so, like we tell like a lot of our athletes and even just folks that are working out with us, that a lot of times finding a good protein supplement is really beneficial, because we don't get the protein. And like you said, if you're running through somewhere fast, you're probably getting high fats, high carbs, maybe not the best carbs, and you're probably not getting as much protein as you need, especially if you're working out. You want to talk a little bit about, because I'm just telling folks that are listening right now, when I kind of bought everything because I wanted to try the different things, that. But I really bought into, like, I take the protein every morning. I have a smoothie that I make, and I put that in every morning. I take the core complete, I take the vitamins every morning, and then sometimes in the evening, depending on how my day went. So I'll kind of double up on them. But they're just made an impact, and I know those two, and I take some other things as well, and we will talk about. But those really made a huge impact, and I could notice the difference between the vitamins and then the protein. I actually got both and tried both, and I'm kind of leaning more towards the vanilla right now. But can you talk a little bit about the protein and the source from that? Because I think that's a game changer too.
Yeah, for the so the company, and I'm I always tell people I am like a carnivore to the day's end. Like I am not a vegetable guy. So we have this vegan source, and then we have the whey protein source. What really caught my attention about the whey protein, and I've taken protein shakes before as an athlete, even in high school. I ran track, I wrestled in high school, and so I worked out a ton. And one of the things with the whey that really got my attention is that many years ago, I started realizing the difference between grass-fed burgers and regular burgers, right? I don't know if you've ever had a grass-fed burger compared to just a normal burger. Someone would tell you it's different, and you can't see how it'd be different, but it is actually different. And the main reason is because grass-fed, free-roaming cows are way more relaxed. There's not as much testosterone. There's not as much stuff going through their body's stress level, cortisone levels, which affect the meat, which change the outcome. And so the protein shake, there's not very many protein shakes, which I love. There's not the same ingredients. There's quality ingredients that sound the same, but there's difference between quality. But I love the fact that this protein shake has 18 of the BCAAs that we need. BCAAs are big now, as you probably know. So 18 BCAAs in one shake, and 25 grams of protein. That's quite a bit in one shake, and it's under 200 calories. Yeah. And we're one of the only protein shakes that is sweetened with something called pure cane. Pure cane, if you look at all of the other brands out there, nothing is really sweetened with pure cane. And I think a lot of companies will start using it because it is a fermented sugar cane. So it's not an artificial sweetener, and it's not an actual sugar. It's from sugar cane, but because they ferment it, they take out the calories, and it's 10 times sweeter than normal sugar. So it's really great. Grass-fed, free-roaming cows from New Zealand. They call them happy cows, which is pretty funny. But they're called happy cows because they're free-roaming. So there's the whey version, and then we have a vegan version. Same thing, 18 BCAAs, 25 grams of protein, but all of the protein come from 9 different sources of like beans and nuts and stuff like that. Right. So the vegan version is definitely different. But yeah, it's really a phenomenal product as far as quality goes. And it's the only, again, liposomal protein shake. I don't know if you know this, but they say don't put the protein shake in a shaker. You really want to use a blender because you have to blend it for 60 seconds. It almost is like a science experiment. 60 seconds activates the liposomal technology in it for absorption of the protein.
Yeah, I read that. And for folks that are listening, because I'll have athletes a lot of times say, well, there's only 25 grams. This has 60 grams. But like I always tell them, like your body can only assimilate so many grams at a time. And I'm like, you can't break down much more than 25 to 30. So the 60 you're doing, just like you talked about, you're literally, it's a crap. It is your crap because you're going to the bathroom. And I'm like, you can't use more than that. And then the BCA we're talking about are the branch chain amino acids. What I always use that, I'm like, that's like somebody putting a pile of, packages along the side of the road, but there's no truck to pick them up and transport them. I'm like, that's what you need, those branch chain amino acids, because that's
Yes.
going to help with the whole process. And if you can take protein, but if there's no way to transport it, it's like setting that package out by the road, but there ain't no trucks coming to get it. So all you do is pile up your packages and they don't get to where they need to get to. So, and that's where I just noticed from the protein, like the amount, the amino acids that help break everything down. I just noticed within a short period of time, and I have people all the time will ask, from an exercise standpoint, nutrition, it's like, well, how do I know this works? And I'm like, I can't give you like in 3 days, you're going to notice a difference. It's like working out, right? If you go to the gym, I'm like, I can't tell, like, you can go work out for 90 minutes, come home, look in the mirror and say, well, this didn't work because nothing happened. But I'm like, but if you go consistently, and I'm not sure what the day is because everybody's different, but you are going to notice a day where you go, hey, wait a second, I feel better. My body feels better because of the things that you're putting in it too. And like I said, I can't tell you the exact day, but if you do this over an extended period of time, there's going to be a day, like with working out, you go, hey, my clothes are fitting better. I don't feel like such a pile, and same with nutrition. It's like, wow, I start feeling better.
Well, I love and I love how our relationship came about because, the wheelhouse for you is nutrition. I mean, that's your wheelhouse. We're not going to try to pull the rug over you. And I remember having our first conversation and you just tried the products. You're like, okay, I'm going to try the products and, I will give you my honest feedback. And for you to be able to have results and be able to see the quality of the product working in your life, that becomes really the greatest testimony for us. But yeah, I love what you said about the protein part, because what good does it do if your body only needs 100 milligrams to get rid of a headache and an aspirin? Why do you need to take 900 milligrams of aspirin if it only takes 100 to get rid of the headache? Right? Yeah. So it's one of those things with protein, like, okay, it has 60 grams of protein, or, you're taking 300 grams of protein. Like, your body's only going to take so much.
Yeah.
And then it's just going to flush it out. You're wasting your money.
Well, and I don't know how deep we want to get into other products, but I know, example, I don't sleep much. When I hit the head, usually I'm pretty good, but I use the sleep.
Yeah.
So like I know, this is a whole different conversation for guys with technology, but I wear a Fitbit and don't get anything from Fitbit. When I look at, give sleep levels, right? Like your score.
Yeah.
When I started using the sleep, I went from like between 70 and 75 to between 80 and even up like to 87 almost, so like within that window, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try this. And it's a spray you do before you go to bed. And like literally over the next 3-4 days, I'm like, my score just went up 10, and I don't know the whole meaning behind the Fitbit and everything, but I'm like, my quality of sleep's better. I felt better, especially on a shorter period, because like I said, my days are kind of, depending on what I'm doing, I can sometimes go on 4 hours sleep, but it was good quality 4 hours. And I felt better on those short 4 or 5 hours than I do when I'm just doing my normal stuff. And I don't know like I said, we could talk about some of the different, but I know for me, the sleep was another big one that, I don't know if we want to talk more about that, but that was huge for me.
Yeah. And it's funny because we've had so many friends of ours, and the primary ingredient in that liposomal spray is just melatonin.
Right.
Which everybody knows what melatonin is, a natural thing to put your body into that sleep stage. Well, we have friends of ours all the time that say, what's in it? I say melatonin. They said, oh, I try melatonin. I pop melatonin like candy. It don't work. And we're like, that's great, but it's also a pill. It's the way, again, let's go back to the delivery. This is a liposomal spray. So your body doesn't even know it's taking melatonin because it's in a fat bubble.
Right.
So it goes in your bloodstream, delivers it. That's why you're going into a deep sleep. They're like, I can't even tell you how many stories of people taking the sleep spray who say they swear that melatonin does not work. They pop them like candy. And within a couple of days, they're calling us up going, I can't believe how good I'm sleeping.
Right.
It's because it's the delivery. Again, every single product goes back to delivery. Your body doesn't care the name, the brand, or the cost. Your body is only going to absorb what it absorbs. And if it doesn't absorb it, it's ineffective.
Right.
It's ineffective, right? That's why medications, you're on medications for so long, what happens? Your body gets used to it, stops working, right? Because if your body doesn't absorb it, it's not effective. Your body is so smart. So that's why this liposomal delivery, it recognizes and loves one thing, fat.
Yeah.
And when it thinks it's a fat bubble, it's like, oh, I need some more of that, not knowing that there is something in the middle that's going to be delivered. And that's the effectiveness of what the company is doing, you know, and especially with some of the products they have lined up with some of the things going on, you know, I think it's just going to be a great opportunity for the health prospects, for people looking for really quality products that are going to work for them.
You know, I'm going to give a shot. Tell my tactical guys right now, guys, you need to listen to that, because guys with shift work, you know, like, and that's what we'll tell them, like, when all of a sudden you went from days to nights and you're sleeping now during the day,
Oh, yeah.
you need to take the melatonin to get in that cycle back again. And so, you know, like, depending on their shift and load, like with firefighters, it's like, well, we're 4 on, 1 off, and 4-2, and they're all of a sudden doing day-night shift, and we're like, you got to get some melatonin in, because you got to get back in that, you know, cycle to sleep, and that helps you get to better sleep when you're going to bed at 7 in the morning instead of, you know, at the night. So when they're all screwed up. So my tactical guys, that's one to check out anyway. But another thing I want to talk about a little bit and get into from a product end is the CBD stuff. And I know that's kind of within the same umbrella, but it's kind of a different wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about that, but I know just the quality of the brand of those products too are huge.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny because I would encourage everybody to Google the health benefits, the top 50 or the top 100 health benefits of CBD. First of all, CBD is really a phenomenal supplement that you can take that will help you. And there are so many research and studies done on CBD. The misnomer of CBD is that, you know, I've never done drugs before, I don't want to get high, right? I don't do drugs. I don't like marijuana. I've never smoked a joint. And it's like, okay, it's completely different. Like CBD is actually even in broccoli. People don't even know there's actually CBD in broccoli. So the CBD, there's really 2 forms. The CBD oil is really the effective piece. Well, high concentration of CBD oil in marijuana plants and high CBD concentration in hemp. The difference between hemp and marijuana is the THC. The THC is how you get high. It's the hallucinogen, right? So we market hemp CBD, which has 0 THC, okay? Now, a lot of companies will use THC because it helps with absorption. Higher concentrate of THC, the greater the absorption. That's why people who battle PTSD, smoke joints, smoke marijuana, helps mellow them out. Right. Anxiety goes down, right? Because of the THC, which helps with the absorption of CBD. Well, when you don't have an absorption problem because you use a liposomal technology, you don't even have to mess with THC at all. And ours is all grown in the United States. It's all plant-to packaging, organic, compliant, non-GMO. I mean, the spectrum of our CBD is so phenomenal. And because of the liposomal delivery, the bioavailability, which is just the ability for your body to recognize and absorb, the bioavailability for liposome technology is like 100%. Whereas the bioavailability for traditional, just regular CBD on a standard delivery system is like 19%. So you do the math, 400 milligram or a 500 milligram bottle of CBD, your body's only absorbing around 19%, which is 90 milligrams. You have a CBD oil that's 400 milligrams and the bioavailability is 100%. You're almost integrating 400 milligrams, right? So you need less milligrams for it to be effective than a higher dosage that has the wrong bioavailability or the wrong absorption factor, right? So ultimately, this CBD is phenomenal. It works. I mean, if you Google CBD when it comes to all kinds of things, right? I mean, you will be blown away with the health benefits of CBD because it helps with the receptors in our body. And I always tell people CBD stands for cannabinoid. Every single one of us has a cannabinoid system in our body, just like we have a respiratory system, a digestive system. We also have a cannabinoid system in our bodies. That is why CBD works so well.
Right. Yeah, and those products are amazing too. To get into it, I know because it's a new thing that's going to be coming out. One of the things then when we talked about this, I think a week or so ago, about the immune system.
Oh yeah.
That they're looking at. And I don't know how deep we can get into that right now, but can you mention that? Because I know right now, just with even, like I say, when we deal with like tactical performer, like the military, first responders,
Yep.
and just everybody, because of all the stuff that's been going on, the high levels of stress and the immune system that's broken down. And I know it's like, well, you got to take care of your immune system. And then when you talk to people about the stress levels they're under and everything, I'm like, okay, well, your high cortisol is going to be, is bad because you're going to have inflammation. Inflammation causes, to break down your immune system and everything. That I think that's going to be a huge, huge market, because I think people understand it's like, well, I got to have a good immune system, but they don't even know sometimes how to go about it. Like when we talk like our tactical athletes, they're like, dude, this is a stressful job and I'm going to be stressed, and that's the way it is. So I'm going to have to live with no sleep, overweight, low testosterone, because when the cortisol level goes up, testosterone drop. There's just a whole number of things that go along with having a messed up immune system.
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
I think we can hit on that just a little bit, because I think that's going to be huge for folks, even if they're just looking at something, not even like I know we talk the business end, but just saying, I need something from almost every age level. And it's not just like, oh, for seniors because they have bad immune systems. I'm like, a lot of folks do.
Well, everyone does. And you hit it right on the head. I think our immune systems, we could go on for days talking about what stress does to our bodies.
Right.
And with some of these firemen, firefighters, police officers that you train, that is the most stressful job on the planet. And with that being said, stress breaks down everything. And the number one thing that fights off everything that we battle, from any virus, the flu, it doesn't matter, is your immune system. Your immune system is your first line of defense. So in the end of January, our company is coming out with an immune product. And the immune product is going to be an immunity product directly focused on building your immune system at a rapid rate. And it's going to have 12 different ingredients. It's going to have a couple patented ingredients in there. One of them is going to be a technology with silver. And so this immunity product is going to be phenomenal, because it's going to allow us to market the product to people that really need it. You and I had talked about this without getting political, but there's a big spectrum of people that are not so eager to jump on a vaccine. Let's face it, right? They're just not that eager to jump on it. But what they do know is that if their immune system is elevated, it gives them a better chance fighting off any sort of sickness, right? And that's why a lot of the elderly battle illnesses, and they have a harder time because their immune system obviously is not as strong as when they were in their 20s or when they were teenagers. So this immunity product is going to be phenomenal for all of you that just want to boost your immune system the all natural way. We're going to have an option for you to evaluate at the end of January. And what's great is that we're going to be able to market this product all throughout the world. And unlike CBD, it's not going to be regulated, because CBD is very regulated in other countries. So even though we operate in 15 countries, CBD is only sold in the United States, because other countries, it's very regulated when it comes to CBD. When it comes to an immunity product, marketing all natural ingredients that are already out there, but formulating it in a way where it's more effective with the delivery system, we can market it everywhere. And obviously, in the state of our country right now, with this whole COVID stuff, the immunity product, I believe, is going to be the biggest hit, because there's nobody that's not going to want to try to boost their immune system.
Right, at every level and every age.
Every level. Yeah. It's going to be a great opportunity for them, and a great product for them to use just to protect themselves. Me, myself, I'm not big on taking a lot of vaccines. I stopped taking the flu shot many, many, many years ago. My kids don't take the flu shot. They take the normal vaccines that are required by law when they're little kids growing up, right? But overall, I'm really torn about the vaccine right now. Being the first time in record, they did it in a year. I'd much rather do it all natural and
Right.
just really make my immune system operate on all levels. It's going to be, based on science, it's basically saying that your immune system is the number one defense.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of share, and I know looking down, I'm like, oh man, we've been talking for an hour and it seems like 5 minutes to me.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to start, and I know we talked about this before, one, because we've been talking about different products, and I know there's a business opportunity, but they're from the product line. Just even check. I tell people all the time, just check it out. Like, information. Find out more information. What would you say, like, for somebody who's going, well, I want to find more about the immune system. I want to find more about the CBD or the protein. What would be the best way for the folks to get more information? Reach out, contact you. I mean, and I'll leave my information too, and folks have access to us to be able to reach out. But what's the best way? And I know you and I talked about offering some samples and doing some of that.
Yeah.
100.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to do that. I think the first source of doing anything, it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or just looking to get healthier or protect yourself, is to just reach out to us. They can email me at Kimon Lee, and it's KIMONLEE at iCloud.com. If you guys send me an email, I'd be more than happy to forward you some information, send you a little gift package on behalf of Coach Rozy, just for the first 100 people. Our focus is we just love to try to send out information. And I love what you said. Evaluation is saying no to something you don't know what you're saying no to is the first part of doing the wrong thing. So I always say, hey, just find out. We'll send you some information. First 100 people that email us, we're going to send out a care package to you for free, send you a bunch of information just based on the audience for Coach Rozy, and let you try them out, let you try them. And any other information you want from there, we can always feed you information at your leisure.
Yeah.
So we can do that. But yeah, we'd love to do that for them.
So again, it's Kimon Lee at iCloud.com.
Yep.
And then, and I'll have my information. If you go to CoachRozy.com, my information's there, but we'll post up Kimon's information too. Just because, again, I think it's so vital. Like I said, I wanted to try it out. So I was like, okay, I'm going to order this stuff and try it. And I just talked to a buddy the other day, and I said, look, I was taking vitamins anyway, and I was taking protein anyway. So I was like, well, what am I going to lose here by trying a different kind for a week or 2 weeks? And that was kind of my thought process. And I'm like, I want to see with my own eyes. And so that's what I'm just telling the, folks with Elevation Nation, is to just see the things. And as I've dug deeper and got to talk to you more, and like you said, finding the right people that can lead the path. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm like, well, if they've already gone through that path and broken the ground, I'm at least going to travel on that to see if it's getting me where I want to go. Now, if it's not getting me where I want to go, I can break off my own path. But if they're breaking the path down, I'm going to at least follow that for a couple steps to see if they're heading me in the right direction. And I just, from my folks to you, and like Kim and I have only probably known each other for a little over a month now, but just the value of the conversation, from the nutrition information I've been able to get from him, and then just as a mentor from a business standpoint, from even the Coach Rozy business, of the things we've talked about, has been huge. So I appreciate, your time. And I don't know if there's anything you want to leave like Elevation Nation with, like I always say, nuggets to leave some folks with, from just, like I said, we're moving into 2021, and just from the goal training standpoint, I always say, that set those goals. And then, like we always talk about, one of our things we say is don't just dream it, but do it. That's one of our like taglines too, because so people, well, I have this goal and I have these dreams. I'm like, okay, but what's your action plan? They're like, well, I know I have this goal and then I have this dream, and I'm like, okay, but what are you going to do for this? And I think they just they have this wish that something's going to happen, but there's no plan in place. If that, you know what I mean? So I don't know if you could maybe hit on that before we close with everybody about the process to really make dreams come true and take that action.
Yeah, I think that's, first and foremost, I want to thank you for inviting me. I've had such a great time. I've had so much respect for you for the last, what I've got to know about you in the last month. I'm just so grateful that that we've become friends. I'm so grateful that we got a chance to meet. And so I'm excited about what we're going to be doing. But as far as the people out there for Elevation Nation, the one thing I would tell you is that it's never too late. And our stories on how they start is never how our story finishes. And no matter what you're going through in life, your life can completely change based on one decision. Now, the one decision doesn't always seem like the decision is going to change your life, but what it does is it adjusts your sail. And my mentor used to always tell me that every single one of us, we go through the same winds. We're all in a boat. We all have a sail. We're all going through trying to get from one point to the other. The difference between someone achieving their goals and dreams is constantly adjusting their sail, because we all have the same disappointments blow on us, the same trials and tribulations blow on us. But I want to tell you something, that no matter where you are in your sailboat on this lake and wherever you're trying to go, all you have to do is adjust your sail. Now, when you adjust your sail, you don't make a drastic change, but what it does is it puts you on a different course. So that's the one thing that I've learned, and that's been my saving grace through all the trials and tribulations I've been through, is that you got to adjust your sail. And by adjusting your sail, you can change the direction of your life. But it's never, ever, ever too late, because I believe God has big plans for us, but God's patient. And God sometimes has to put us through trials and tribulations to get our attention, to put us on the right path. So I believe that everyone can have the life they want, the body they want, the spiritual mindset that they want. Just, I think it takes making that decision and finding a good mentor.
And I appreciate that. And I'm going to ask you one last thing, and maybe to share, because I think people see somebody who's successful, they see the athlete or they see the business person and think,
Yeah.
well, they just had lucky at the right place. And, and even some, it's like, well, yeah, you were at the right place at the right time because you're adjusting your sales. But I think they think, well, Kimon probably has never had any challenges and struggles along the way. Well, it's easy for him because, he had the business and background and engineer and pretty smart. Did you have just a perfect path and an easy path, or were there some struggles? And I don't know if, like I said, I don't want to get too personal, but like to maybe share a struggle or two that it was like, look, there was times where you did hit and say like, what am I doing here? And to keep kind of push through that. Cause I always tell people there's a point where you hit a wall and you got to determine, am I going to turn around and go home, or I'm going to find, go around it, go under it, go over it? Am I going to keep punching the wall? Some of us are knuckleheads, and I'm more of a same. Sometimes I bang my head on the wall to see if I can knock it down before I find other ways. But has things always been kind of come to you naturally, or were there some struggles along the way?
Oh, I mean, we could spend 3 hours talking about all my struggles and all my failures. Oh my gosh, we could be spending a lot of time. One of the things that I do realize is that when I talk about the business side to other entrepreneurs, or even other people who have a little bit of doubt, who've gone through some trials, who've had bad breaks in the industry, who had bad mentors, I always tell them that, the thing about success is that you can never have a good testimony without a lot of good tests. And a lot of times people won't believe your success until they believe your failures. And so I start with failures. I tell them that it's going to be hard. I tell them that they're going to have more no's than they are going to have yeses. And even after 20 years of how well my wife and I have been able to do in the industry, our friends and family, a lot of them never supported us. Even to this day, they don't. But my thought process is always this: sometimes you have to prove someone wrong before you can actually make them proud. And a lot of that's going to take a lot of trials, a lot of tribulation, and you're going to have to go through a learning curve, right? It goes back to the first statement that I made, is that the same thinking that got you to where you're at is not the same thinking that's going to take you to the next level. So until you grasp that, you have to change your thinking, and it becomes uncomfortable. And I believe life is a full circle. You always feel like you're starting over, because at every level, I believe there's a new devil. Because the moment I think, oh, I got this thing down, anyone I talk to will say yes. I'll make sales all day long. I'll build the biggest organization. I've been doing this 20 years. The seeds of doubt come into my mind at a different level. The trials and tribulations in my life come at me at a different level. The only difference is now I have to elevate myself to become better, to overcome it. But at every level, there's a different obstacle. At every level, there's a different overcome. The guys that are extremely muscular, to get to that next level, the Mr. Olympia, they got to go through a whole new set of trials and tribulations and growth, right?
Yeah.
So that is one thing, but it's just the thing that has helped me the most is having realistic expectations, understanding it's going to be hard, but giving myself enough grace to be bad. That has been the key for me, is giving myself the opportunity to be graceful to myself, knowing that, hey, you just started. Hey, you just started working out. Hey, you're a little overweight now. And yeah, you don't look the greatest. And when I started working out and I started dieting, looking at myself going, okay, it's not going to change overnight. And gosh, I can't even pick up my arms. Like, my chest is killing me from doing bench press. Don't even touch me. I don't even want to go tomorrow. My chest is killing me. How could I possibly lift again? But understanding that that's a growth process, right? But that's how it is in everything. So it's just about pushing through that. But trust me, maybe one day we'll do a segment on just how do you overcome, because I have gone through so many. I always tell people my overnight success happened 19 years later.
Right on. Right. So, and then the last thing, and then we'll close, but for the new year, what would you give advice, you know, because everybody's going to be fired up here. We know that for the first 2-3 weeks, the key to get to February, and then the key to get to March, and the key to, you know, that longevity, because I'm like, you got to keep grinding. And when you quit grinding, that's when things stop. So kind of the mindset that you see as people move into because we know a lot of people are going to go by the way. So they have, you know, great intentions, but those intentions die by the wayside a lot of times. What do you see for the people that continue through, or what maybe words of wisdom can you give them? That's kind of what we'll finish up with.
Words of wisdom would be this: is information without application is dead. And, you know, the thing about what I've learned to do is write it down and create a game plan. We always used to call it a DMO, a daily method of operation. You got to write it down. You got to change it. You got to put things in place, but more importantly, you got to apply it. You got to apply it every day. And I don't know if you've ever heard it's called the 2190 day, or the 2190 rule. You have to do something 21 times consecutively. And if you do it for 90 days straight, you can change a habit. So you got to change the habit. So if you have a bad habit of not following through, you got to do something consecutively 21 times in a row and then do it 90 days straight, and your life can change, or you can develop another habit. So I think it's about creating better habits going into 2021. We're all going to be excited. We're all going to be expecting great 2021, but until you apply what you've learned, it's going to be the same as 2020, 2019, 2018, and 2017.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Kimon. And hey, one more time to apply. If somebody wants to apply, get their name in for that 100 chance. One more time, tell them your contact info one more time.
Yeah, it's Kimon Lee, KIMONLEE at iCloud.com. If you send me your phone number, your name, and your address, based on Coach Rozy, I'm going to send you some information so you can try the products. If you like it, you want more information about any aspect of what we talked about, I'll be more than happy to feed that to you. And it'll only be sent to you or given to you at your request only. Okay. So with that being said, that's only for the first 100 people, for all of your audience, Coach Rozy.
Yeah. So again, we appreciate it. Chalk Talk with Coach Rozy, and we'll be here next Wednesday. I appreciate Kimon, and like I said, just you talk about mentorship, him being able to step into our life and be a mentor. So like he said, you're never too old to have a mentor, and I'm kind of an old dog, so it's always good to find good people to be able to work with. So if you don't have his information, we'll have his information posted up. Go to Coach Rozy, again, Coach Rozy, ROZY, CoachRozy.com. We'll have all the information there too, how to send your stuff in to Kim, and you can get a hold of us too, and we'll get you taken care of. We appreciate you guys so much taking the time. Like I said, I could talk to you for 2 to 3 hours, but we'll let you guys go. But if you have anything at all that you need from us, from a training program, performance program, information that Kimon talked about, just let us know, gang. So we're here for you to help best we can help you have a great 2021. Like we always say, don't just dream it, but do it. So let's take some action here in 2021. We appreciate you guys being here. Thanks so much. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.